All right, everybody. So, welcome. I'm Tyler Herrmann. I am with Louisiana Clean Fuels, one of the two Clean Cities coalitions here in Louisiana, and one of the three represented on the call today. We're going to be talking about the annual fleet activity report that all three of our coalitions perform every year. I'm going to give a little bit of background about Clean Cities and Communities, what we do, what this report is, and why we do it. And then each of us are going to discuss how we actually perform the reporting process this year and kind of explain what data we're asking for and why we're asking for it and what we do with it. And again, this will be posted on YouTube so that it's a resource in the future. And then any one of us is happy to take any questions at any point as well. So just to get started with a little bit of background, Clean Cities and Communities coalitions are all across the country. There are around 80 of us across the country. This map is a little bit old, but it's still relatively representative of the situation. You see that there are two coalitions in Louisiana, as well as one in Arkansas that Barrett is representing today. And we are a network of partnerships across the country that can leverage all of our resources together to provide the best technical assistance that we can for fleets using alternative fuels. We came out of a couple pieces of legislation in the 80s and 90s, namely the Alternative Motor Fuels Act of 1988, Clean Air Act of 1990, and EPACT. So all of this came out and created Clean Cities just over 30 years ago, and we've been rocking and rolling ever since. Clean Cities fits under the technology integration portion of the Department of Energy. And what that means is that we get to leverage all of the resources of the Department of Energy for the purpose of technology integration, getting all that great research that the Department of Energy does into consumers' hands through direct technical assistance, funding assistance, and other methods. The kind of four goals at the bottom there are improving energy efficiency, increasing domestic energy security, reducing operational costs, and improving the global competitiveness of the U.S. economy. So very high-level goals from the Department of Energy, but the nuts and bolts of it are that we work with fleets to improve their operational efficiency, save them some money, and improve air quality along the way. The technical portfolio of Clean Cities and Communities is kind of all of the above, but the headline actions are that we work with all vehicle sizes, both on-road and off-road these days, and in all the alternative fuels, including the ones listed across the bottom of the screen there. And then kind of anything burgeoning and up and coming, we'll work with that as well. In Louisiana, we have two coalitions, so I always like to point that out. Aspen is representing the New Orleans Regional Planning Commission's coalition called Southeast Louisiana Clean Fuel Partnership. That is an old logo. Sorry about that, Aspen. I forgot to update this slide. Basically, we cover the majority of Louisiana outside of that greater New Orleans area that is covered by Aspen's territory. We have our programmatic priorities here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but the annual report process feeds into all of these, and that's why it's so important, is for us to better understand what our territory, what our communities need. So some quick background information about what the annual report itself is. The annual report is an alternative fuel vehicle report that we compile every year across the Clean Cities network that gathers information from our fleets and helps us better understand what the state of the industry is. The data that we compile is used to identify industry trends, track progress, inform our priorities like the ones I listed in the previous slide, and then provide recognition to fleets that are doing exceptional work. All the data that we collect is anonymized. We never share any identifiable information at all, except when fleets specifically want us to. We just look at the trends and overall trends of the industry and help and use that to help inform kind of our priorities and what we do throughout the year. And then all that data is input into a Department of Energy tool that outputs summaries of emissions data. So looking at air quality benefits of the efforts, fuel savings, all those sorts of things. All that comes out in a report that I'll show a couple of charts from in a second. And that, again, is like really useful for the whole industry. It's useful for the fleets that we work with because we can provide that data back to them. And then it helps us track progress year over year in our territories. Reasons that it's valuable, some of them I kind of just mentioned, but the annual report really allows us to understand which fuels and technologies are providing benefits to our local communities in our territories. Our annual reports in Louisiana or in Arkansas look very different from those in places like New York or like Illinois or kind of wherever else in the country. And that really helps us inform our local needs and trends and priorities. And then watching dips and growths in the usages of particular fuels or technologies helps us understand if one particular fuel is having trouble, maybe we can jump in with some technical assistance and try to help out somewhere along the way. And it helps us identify where the needs of the industry are. And then we get to provide that emissions reduction data back to the fleets. There's a very, very well recognized and well respected emissions modeling that's being done by the Department of Energy, and that can inform internal sustainability reports or marketing campaigns from fleets, or even like grant applications that require some emissions data in them. These reports can kind of feed into that and help bolster those applications. And then the data that we're asking for, it's kind of a large suite of data, but these are kind of the two major buckets with each of the parts kind of contained within them. The fuel usage for alternative fuel vehicles, that's including all those fuels on the left side. It's the same ones that we saw on that earlier slide. And then fuel saving measures that are not necessarily fuel related or like the type of fuel related, and can be even like with diesel or gasoline vehicles, but are these activities that fleets might do to reduce their fuel costs and their fuel usage, such as idle reduction, route optimization, driver training for fuel efficiency, all those sorts of things. Those are all things that we can report on because they're very valuable assets to a fleet for saving money. And in the output in Louisiana, this is what it looks like. This is how we share the data. We won't go through all the details here, but I do like to show the actual nuts and bolts of what we show people, and what the data looks like whenever we provide it out from the coalition at into the annual reporting process. No fleet names, nothing identifiable, just a kind of high level look at what the data looks like. And then similar here, these are just other charts that we use. These are just looking at the actual fuel projects, not the fuel efficiency projects. Again, just another lens that we can kind of look at the data through. So looking here in Louisiana, or in our territory specifically, natural gas or CNG makes up the bulk of the alternative fuel usage in our fleets. And that's important data for us to track year over year to see where the industry is moving. And then kind of the bulk of this presentation is going to be spent on us three coalitions going over how we actually collect the data. So at Louisiana Clean Fuels, we have three ways that a fleet can provide their data to us for the annual report. We can provide it through a spreadsheet, an online survey, or through direct email. We prefer the direct email mostly for the simple entries, fleets with just a few vehicles or where they can really summarize their data in a couple of sentences or a small chart. But we'll take it kind of any way we can get it, and we'll do the hard work if we have to convert it to the formats we need to for the report. So we let fleets use whatever is easiest for them. Looking at a couple of the examples, the spreadsheet, it's pretty basic. We try to keep it as simple as possible without a huge amount of faff. So we ask about the stations is one part of it, and then like the alternative fuel part. It's all tabs in an Excel spreadsheet, so it's quite simple. And then we just let the fleets fill in as they need. We also have a survey. This is through SurveyMonkey. It's a really deep guided survey that goes through all of the possibilities. But this is a way that people like to fill it out in our experience as well. And again, it's basically the same thing as a spreadsheet. It's just a survey format that goes through all the forms. And that's all I had. So we try to keep it relatively simple. And I think Aspen's going to talk about what they do in their territory. So take it away, Aspen.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler, for going over all of that about what DOE does with the data, why we collect this data, and why it's so important. So yeah, we're the Southeast Louisiana Clean Fuel Partnership. We're the second coalition in Louisiana. While Louisiana Clean Fuels covers most of the state, we cover 8 parishes around Lake Pontchartrain, which is the New Orleans region, including Jefferson, Orleans, Plaquemine, St. Bernard, St. Charles, St. John the Baptist, St. Tammany, and Tangipahoa parishes. We are housed in a regional planning commission, so we do transportation planning for the 8 parish region. We also serve as the MPO, which is the Metropolitan Planning Organization for this 8 parish region. So on top of our Clean Cities work, we do a lot of work around transportation planning, economic development, and other resilience and climate related programming. And so as part of a Clean Cities Coalition, we're really interested in tracking our transportation emissions and figuring out how to reduce those in the region. Next slide. So I'll go over just briefly our greenhouse gas emissions that are transportation related, and then also how our stakeholders have helped reduce some of those emissions. So we were participants in an EPA climate pollution reduction grant last year. We actually released a climate plan in March of 2024. So the first table you see here on the left is a breakdown of where our total gross emissions are coming from by sector. And our region is really focused, really has a high concentration of industrial emissions. And that's really just because of a lot of the industries that appear in St. James Parish and St. Charles Parish, some of the other river parishes in our area. And even though St. James Parish is not included in our coalition, it is included within the MSA. So that's why it was included in this graphic. But really, if we take out industrial emissions, mobile combustion still accounts for a large portion of our emissions. And it's one that we feel that we can really help reduce by taking on small measures like, swapping out fuels, doing vehicle miles traveled reduction, and doing small measures here at the local level. And so the other graphic is our 2023 greenhouse gas emissions that were reduced by our stakeholders. So this is all the data that we collected last year showing what each one of our stakeholders contributes in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And this is also a breakdown of the biggest contributors in terms of the categories that we track. So we actually have pretty large for off-road vehicles. This includes some rail and also marine in the region. And then we also have a pretty high reduction in vehicle miles traveled. We do track some of our transit agencies' ridership, and then also we also track bike and pedestrian, which ideally reduces vehicle miles traveled and reduces greenhouse gas emissions. And so with these, we were able to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by about 16,000 metric tons. And this was all just due to our stakeholders in the region. Next slide. And so we use the same form as Tyler. So we're using the same kind of form to fill out your data when you reply to us. Both Joan and I, and Joan is also on the call, are contacts to reach out to us if you have transportation data in our region that you want to report on. And again, we're very flexible about this. We can provide you this spreadsheet. We can show you what your organization maybe submitted last year. And if you have any questions about how to fill it out, definitely feel free to call or email either me or Joan. Our contact info is here. But even if this spreadsheet seems like a lot to fill out, we're definitely open to getting on a phone call with you, or you can even provide through email like a basic, these are the vehicles we have, these are the types of fuels that they swapped out from other vehicles, and this is how many miles they traveled. So definitely we get data in very different ways, but we can supply you with this report to fill out as well. Next slide. And in the past, we did host an annual award ceremony to kind of highlight some of the emissions reductions that our stakeholders take on. And while we don't want to bring back necessarily like an in-person award ceremony, we do want to really highlight our biggest contributors for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So what we're thinking about doing is either do it like a small decal, a small award that you can post on your website that you can use to kind of show off that you are contributing to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and that you're an active stakeholder in our region. And we know that not every organization we work with as a stakeholder has a large fleet, has a huge contribution to greenhouse gases. And we totally understand that, you might still be doing a ton of work, but you don't have a lot of vehicles to report. So on top of reporting, what your fleet is doing to reduce greenhouse gases, we also want to recognize any emissions reduction policies. Maybe you have some work from home policies. Maybe you have policies in place to help employees get at like workplace charging. So we do want to support anyone who's actually working towards this and not just reducing their emissions at the fleet level as well. So we will definitely be taking stakeholder feedback about what those awards will look like, and hopefully we'll be doing that in 2025. I think that might be the last slide I have.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, I can go ahead and start talking about Arkansas. So my name is Barrett Hunnicutt, and I'm the current director of Arkansas Clean Cities. We've serve the entire state of Arkansas, and we've been around since 1995. We are currently in a transition period. We are actually housed under LCF, our sister coalition to the south of us, and we'll continue that partnership moving forward until we're set up as a 501c3. But given that, I didn't want to repeat a lot of the information that Tyler and Aspen has shared, but I will say that I did not include slides of our previous annual reports because some of that data is a little bit skewed as we have historically relied on legacy projects. And so this is the first time that as a coalition, we're reaching out to new fleets across the state and encouraging them to participate in the annual report. So Tyler, if you'll go to the next slide. So a little bit of information that will help you fill out our form, which again, we use a different form than what Aspen and Tyler use. There are kind of four main categories that you need to know before getting into our form. The first is understanding your vehicle classification. If it's a light duty, less than 10,000 pounds, this would be any cars or anything like that in your fleet. And then we also have the category for heavy duty, anything greater than 10,000 pounds. And this does include medium duty vehicles as well, and off-road use vehicles as well. So forklifts and tractors and things like that. When it comes to the next category, you need to kind of understand that is what type of vehicle you have and where it's serving. So again, that could be car, pickup, SUV, a low speed neighborhood vehicle, a motorcycle, or unknown. The unknown, again, is if you're not 100% sure, you can put that and then we'll figure it out on our back end. And the same with the heavy duties. Most of that is focused on shuttles and buses and trucks on road. If it is off-road usage, you would click the unknown category. And then again, what is the vehicle being used for? Is it used for a corporate fleet, government for the local, the state, or is it using for parks, utilities, airport? And then if it's used for general purposes, or again, if you're not 100% sure, you can put unknown and we'll figure that out. You go to the next slide, Tyler. So this is a look at what our form looks like. And this one is an example of an electric form. I will be sending out to all the stakeholders each form for each fuel type. Again, these will be sent out in early February, hopefully next week, and then they will need to be returned back to me by March 14th so that we can get them all submitted by our March 31st deadline, which is when our annual report is due. And so it's a very straightforward form. You'll go through and put your company name, your vehicle manufacturer, vehicle model, year, and then again, getting into that class and type and what that vehicle was purposed for, the number of vehicles in your fleet. And if you do have multiple vehicles in different fleets, you'll fill out two different forms for the fuel types. And then the efficiency, and then we'll need to know fuel economy, and then what was the fuel economy of the vehicle replaced, and then total number of miles traveled. So you go to the next slide, Tyler. So this is an example of a completed form. Again, I left the top part blank, again, because that will be your company name. But when it comes to the vehicle manufacturer, this one, again, is for electric. So it would be a Tesla, a Model 3, the model year of 2022. This would be a light duty under 10,000 pounds, would be a car. And in this case, it would be used for general or unknown purposes. Number of vehicles in this fleet would be 1. Total electricity used would be 3,000 kilowatts. Then you would do your fuel efficiency, and then you would put the economy of the vehicle it replaced. So in this instance, it's replacing a vehicle that got 22.2 miles per gallon, and they traveled 11,520 miles in that total year. And again, this is looking at data from January of 24 all the way to December. So we're looking at the entire year of last year. And like I said, those will need to be submitted back to my email. And I will include the instructions on how to fill out these forms as well in that, all the forms, and then a link to this presentation as well. So if you go to the next one. Again, this is just my contact information if you need it. This has my work and cell number on it, and along with my email. And I do believe Tyler has a next slide that has all of our contact information.
I do indeed. Thank you, Barrett. And yeah, here is a slide with all of our contact information on the bottom left there, so you can reach out to any one of us. I didn't have Joan's contact information. That was on one of Aspen's slides, but I know that she's also somebody to reach out to for their annual report. And if anybody has any questions, I think we've got more than enough time to take any. So feel free to unmute or drop a question to the chat if anybody has anything. And Jen put her email address in the chat as well. So if y'all want to take that down, you can. Okay, not seeing any questions or hearing any questions, we can keep it nice and short today. As I mentioned, the recording of this presentation will be put onto our YouTube, and then I think that Barrett and Aspen will share it out kind of as needed. So that's available for anybody who wants it. And barring anything else, we can end the presentation there. Thank you all so much for coming, and I really appreciate it.